Hello guys, this is XE Crash, and I'm making a tutorial today on NETLock, how to set it up from start to scratch from using the project source, like the admin panel, and setting up the NETLock DLL, and then setting up your own application to use the NETLock DLL so that you can host it for your modding tool or whatever it may be, account cracker, things like that. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to this link, the GitHub link to NETLock. And then you're going to want to go down to the cloner download right here. And you're going to download the zip. It's going to pop up. It's going to look something like this. NETLock-master. And you're basically just going to go ahead and drag this to your desktop like that. I already have it, so I'm going to cancel it. I don't need that. It's going to delete it. I already have mine open on my desktop. And for this tutorial, instead of setting it up on an actual server, I'm choosing to use XAMPP, which is basically just a phpMyAdmin host for your local machine. So instead of phpMyAdmin on a server, we're going to be using phpMyAdmin on your local computer, just for the simplicity of this tutorial, to show you how to set it up. But for you, if you have a server, you would use phpMyAdmin on a server, and the connection string part would just be a tad bit different. You just scroll down here to download XAMPP for Windows. I'm assuming most of you are probably on Windows. You use that. You'd download it, click on install, go through the install process. Then you're going to get something like this for the XAMPP control panel. And what you're going to do here is you're going to turn on the Apache server. And you're going to start MySQL server. Once these load up, I'll show you what to do next. Alright, now that they're both started up, instead of typing in the address up here on MySQL, we can just click the admin button, and it might ask you for your default browser, but in most cases it'll just use your default browser if you have one set, and it'll open up phpMyAdmin with the prefix localhost, and you're gonna get something like this. Okay, so we need to set up our database first. I include my database file for use with NETLock DLL in the download on GitHub. So I'll go over here. Apparently I don't have my folders up anymore, which is fantastic. GitHub NETLock. So in this case, you would just go to the folder that you dragged to the desktop earlier, and under database file, you'll see mass.sql. I'm going to go and copy that and paste it to my desktop. Right there it is. We're going to go up here and we're going to make a new database. And not phpMyAdmin, we're going to call it mass. Once it's created, we're going to go over to import. Along the top tabs, where it says browse your computer for file to import, you're going to choose your file. And I'm going to click my desktop and just type in mass SQL. There your database file is. Then we're going to click on go. And it's going to run all the MySQL commands inside of my database file, and it's going to set it up all for you. A bunch of successful MySQL requests. Now the next step in this would be to go back to your root directory of the NETLock folder, and you're gonna double click on netlock.sln. It's gonna bring up this. You're gonna have 3 different projects within the solution NETLock. 2 ones that we're gonna worry about is admin panel and NETLock. Example application, that's just kind of, if I didn't make this tutorial, this is what you'd look at to figure out how to use it. So we're not going to worry about the example application for right now. So in NETLock, we're going to go down to netlock.css, CS, my bad, and it's going to be all closed like this. You want to go down to the connection methods, and right here, under my MySQL connection, colon equals new MySQL connection. The server address would be whatever your server's IP address is if you're using a server somewhere out there on the internet. So like 59.65.78.146. That'd be like a server address that you might have out there somewhere on the public server address. But for example, we're going to use the local host. User ID, for example, its default is root. For example, the password is nothing, and our database is going to be mass, because that's what we have right here. Our database is mass. We're just going to click on authentication so that it loads. You're going to see that we have ID and token, nothing in there yet. Now we have this connection string changed. We can save the project. Let's do this thing. And we're going to go ahead and open up the admin panel and go under program. Right click on wherever. It's not coming up. Give me a second. There we go. Okay. It's not going to let me right click. So just double click up where the bar says form 1. Ignore the form 1 load. And if you minimize authentication method along the side here, you should come up with connection methods. And again, whatever you did on NETLock for the connection string, you're going to just copy and paste it right here where this connection string is. They both have to be the same exact connection string so that we're connected to the same database on the same server. Now, in the program itself, we're going to, like in the program that we're going to be creating from scratch, say it's like your account cracker tool or your modding tool for Xbox or whatever, we're going to have to auth the program with a token stored on the database. If there's no token there, we can't auth it. So, easiest way to do this, if you don't have this bar at the top, where it says admin panel, if you don't have this bar up here, you're just going to hover over admin panel, right click on it, go to debug down here, and start new instance. It's going to load up the application. Now, if you have your connection string set up and you have PHP myadmin running with the correct database name in the connection string as well as on the PHP myadmin database, we should be able to generate an auth token and store it inside the database so that we can authenticate our programs. Here it is. Can't grab there's checking set up, so if we don't have anything stored, it'll tell you to generate one. And if we try to generate more than one, it'll tell us that we already have one generated and can just grab it. So there's our authentication token. We can just Control-C that. Try to generate another one. There's one that already exists. Just got to grab it from the database. Now we can be done with that and close it out now that we have it copied. And that's basically all you need for this part. And if you don't want to do it within the project solution itself, oh my bad. Before you do this, you're going to want to build the solution, because all these changes in the admin panel itself reference NETLock to change. Actually, the admin panel doesn't. But you want to save your changes and then build them so that everything works correctly. Because if you don't build it and try to use your NETLock on this new application, the connection strings are going to be different. So I apologize for that. You're going to want to build the entire project solution before you go make your application. But the admin panel debugging, you shouldn't have to. It doesn't reference the NETLock DLL. You're going to be able to use this to store to the database without having to have the NETLock DLL built. So I apologize for that. We should have built the project solution first before we did this. But now that we have it built, we just save it. Then we can move on to our application that we may just be building now or start building for one of our modding tools. We're going to add a reference. We're going to reference our NETLock DLL, which can be found in the download in the download from the GitHub. We go into the NETLock folder, bin, depending on where you build it, which I built mine under debug. I can reference netlock.dll, and I'm going to hold down Control and click on mysql.data so that it adds both of them. So that when we build our project, it's going to copy both of those to our project folder, so I don't have to worry about copying it by hand. And I already have this pretty much pre-built. So basically just going to set up your own login form. Under the login button, we're going to type in, I think, 2 or 3 classes. We have a reference to NETLock up here, the DLL that we just referenced over here. We have to include a using to it. So using NETLock. Then under public partial class, we're going to type in auth response. Response equals auth response. And then we're going to type in, it's going to be new auth response. I'll type in login response. And response 2 equals new login response. So now that we have those both set up, we can go under our login button, which was my button 1. I double click login again, take us to button 1 click. Since our login response, we call it response 2. I'll make an if statement. If response 2 login. And for my 2 text boxes, I changed their names to fit within what their purpose was. So my text box for my username is tb_username. Text box for password is tb_password. For this, you're going to type, it goes login, and then it'll be your username, and then your password. Text. tb_password.text. And since our login, the response to the login, if this means that our login was successful. So if our login was successful, we're going to hide the login form, and we're going to open the new main form. And before we can log in, our program has to authenticate on loading. So since we already made an auth response class, we're going to do a response if, we'll make if statement, response dot authenticate program. It's going to be a string. That token that we got earlier from the admin panel, we can just control V that in there. So if our response authenticate program, our token, if our token matches the one that we have stored in the database, we're just going to do nothing. Else message box dot show programs program was unable to authenticate the given was unable to authenticate. We'll just leave it at that. Program was unable to authenticate. Program will close now. Then we're in an application dot exit. So for some reason we can't authenticate. We're going to go ahead and say that we can't, and then we're going to close the application, which might be caused by somebody not having internet connection or something like that. And before we can use the login, we need to authenticate the program, because if we don't, we're unable to use login in the registration methods. It checks before we even run any code within those two methods if the program is authenticated or not. Security measure to keep other people from, just spamming your database full of fake accounts or trying to crack logins or things like that. They have to have the authentication token from your database, which is stored on your database, so they won't be able to get it. Alright, now we can make our register button. So all we're going to do for this is we're going to hide the login page. We're going to open up the registration page. Same as if we logged in. We load the new form. Just going to load the register page on this. So we can save the project, and then we can close out a login. You can open up register.cs, and it looks basically the same. So click on the register button. Make sure when you come to your new form that you create, you're always going to want to type in using NETLock. Now under button one click, which we just made by double clicking on the register button, we're going to type in register response reg equals register response. I keep forgetting to add new. Sorry about that. Then if statement, if reg.register is true, tb underscore username dot text, dot text. I can fucking type. tb underscore password dot text. Then we're going to make another message box that says we add the little cache symbols so that we can make curly brackets inside text boxes and add variables such as tb underscore username dot text. And so we don't have to break up the parentheses and add tb underscore username dot text space plus space and then the string. We can just add it right in the middle of it, which is nice. Has been registered successfully. And then we're going to hide the registration form. Make a new login form. Show, so that takes us back to the login page. And you can add a message statement to this, and now give them a message box that says failed for whatever reason. Log registration has failed. And we can go over to the cancel button and just have it take us back to hide the registration form and then take us back to the login form. And login. Show. That's basically all we need on the register form. Now that we have that out of the way, we can go to our main form, which I have set up to display a number of users online, because that's a feature within NETLock. You can check your database, check the online status. If it's true, it'll count the number of members that have true as their online status and display a number of users that are logged into the tool. So, under main form load, we're actually going to make a program statistics. Always remember, under the new main form, always type in using NETLock so that we don't have to do netlock.statistics. We just do program statistics, program equals new program statistics. We're going to under main form load, program, actually, we'll go back to the main form. When we look at our number placeholder, see it's labeled 2. We'll do label 2.text is equal to program dot users online. Now to return an integer, string representation of an integer. And there's one more thing. With this DLL, to get the users online and the users offline status, we have to add a logout method when the program closes. So we'll have to use a protected override on form closing. And we'll be using our logout class, our logout response class. Logout equals logout response. And underneath the main form load, we're going to type in protected override on form closing. Tab it. It's going to give you a bunch of base on form closing junk. You don't need that. So look up above our logout response, logout, insert variable name. We're going to type in logout logout update. That's all we'll have to do. And it'll change our online status from true when we log in to false when it closes. So now that we have this all set up, we can change our solution configuration to debug. Then we can start it. And since we don't have any users in here, let's give it a second for it to load. I'll show you that there are all tokens in here. All tokens right there. go on our users, we are not going to have anything. So we go over here to register on our application, and I'm just going to use xe-crash 7s. Password is 7s. And register. xe-crash 7s is registered. Spelled that wrong. Jesus. Register successfully. And that takes us back to our login page. So xe-crash 7s. Password 7s. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at our database. We're going to see what happened there when we registered. So insert ID is 1, which auto increments each time a new user is added. So if we were to register another user, the ID will change to 2 automatically. Our user ID is xe-crash7s, which is what we typed in. Here's our password that was stored earlier. This is our 7s password right there, hashed using bcrypt, a very strong implementation of it. This is the date that we registered using universal timecode. And obviously our online and our last login is nothing. It's all zeros because we haven't logged in yet. Our online is set to false because we haven't logged in yet. Go back here, click login, and check the database to make sure our username and password match up. And it's going to give us this. Now, as we logged in, our last login changed and so did our online status. If I refresh it, it'll show our online status to true. Our last login, the time that we logged in at, the exact time that we logged in at in universal timecode. And this counted how many users were online. So when we logged in, it took a look at how many users in the database had the online status set to true, and it returned a value. So now, if we close the form, we should have updated the database, set this back to false, which it did. And that's basically how you set up and use NETLock from start to finish with the solution I gave you using the admin panel to generate the authentication token, and then setting up the NETLock DLL itself in your application for ease of use to log in and register to the database. I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial, and I hope this helped you in some way set this up for yourself. Have a good day, guys. It's Sexy Crash from 7 Sins.